Welcome to Biz Filing's Expert Insights.
Hi, I'm Greg Corombos. Our guest this week on Expert Insights is Mike Enright, Service Manager at Biz Filings. Obviously, right now, a lot of small businesses and their owners are looking for ways to protect their companies and their employees during the uncertainty of the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic. Small businesses are some of the hardest hit by these sorts of emergencies, but there are ways to protect your business right now and to prepare it for when things get back to what will pass for normal. And there are 7 specific ways and areas that we want to look at this week, ranging from prioritizing health and safety to finances to being ready for normal to resume. And Mike, thanks very much for being with us.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, let's start with the issue that's on everybody's mind, and that's the prioritization of health and safety. What can small businesses specifically do on that front?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we hear regarding health and safety, and for small businesses in particular, travel is one thing that comes up right away. I mean, we first think of air travel, but also local travel, just limiting the amount of times that you or your employees need to go out. I think it's also important that we keep employees and also ourselves informed of travel restrictions, passing on important government announcements, and offering work from home options. And that's something we've heard about a lot over the last month or so. And also understanding that working from home will look and feel different. I mean, that there's going to be kids or pets at home with you, and they'll need attention as well. So in addition to focusing on, physical health, I think focusing on mental health by giving, your employees and yourself these types of options to figure out a new normal is really, really important. I think also a big thing is communication, and just making sure that the lines of communication are open, establishing procedures where staff can report if they're not feeling well, if they've been exposed to the coronavirus. Doing that will also put your team members and employees at ease and also help them stay mentally healthy, which is just as important.
So, Mike, another thing that obviously is going on right now, because some small businesses are on the brink, some have already basically shut down. So being able to understand and assess the impact on your operations as this plays out is critical. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's something that business owners are going to think about constantly, just what's going to happen to my business during this crisis. And we think about it all the time, but I think it's also important to be detailed about what the impact could be. Things are constantly changing, and we hear that a lot. So I think it's important to run best and worst case scenarios and develop contingency plans for each and constantly revise it, because so many of these situations are fluid. You'll need to continue to just tweak and revive those contingency plans. I think it's also really good to include timeframes in your assessment and just consider that this pandemic could be, a 3-month, a 6-month, or even, heaven forbid, a 1-year problem. Again, this is an ever-changing situation, and you just need to be ready to prepare for that and get your plans written down. I think it's also important to implement work from home policies and use technologies that support being collaborative with your customers and also your employees if you have them. With my colleagues, we're used to working from an office typically, and over the last month, I haven't been able to just simply turn my chair around and ask somebody a question, but we've become really acclimated to using collaborative tools for chats, meetings. There's a lot of really, really great tools out there, and I think also we don't need to be afraid to use them just for like the silly banter that can happen sometimes in an office. I think it's helpful for morale to still have fun and laugh with your coworkers. And I think a big part of what helps operations run smoothly is having an engaged staff. So, trying to keep that vibe going with your business throughout all of this, even if it's virtually, is really, really important.
So taking care of your people on the personal side is at the top of the list, and then taking care of them in the business context is right after it, number 2. But of course, there's a lot of other people you deal with on a regular basis that don't actually work for you. The people that you rely on, vendors and so forth, and lots of other folks, depending on what your business is. You're not necessarily on the same routine, but you still need them now, and you're going to need them down the road. So how do you make sure you maintain and strengthen those relationships?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It really is, because there's so many different dynamics that go into those relationships. And I think communication, I mentioned it earlier, is really, really important. And we've all seen those emails coming from places talking about how your folks that you do business with are dealing with this pandemic. I think it's just important to let your customers know we have a plan and what the plan is. I remember, I got an email a couple of weeks ago from a restaurant I've maybe eaten at once in my life, and they detailed what their plan was for the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's just good to know that they have a plan, and you want to, give that vibe to your customers as well, that you're ever changing and just, staying on top of everything you can. I think it's also important to keep everyone informed of any policies that change or any changes to your operations, and finding new ways to serve and collaborate with your customers. So, for example, if you have a restaurant and now are only doing business by carryout, it's imperative that you make the process clear. How do physically folks come to your restaurant and pick things up? Where should they stand? What the process is, just to make it as easy as possible and safe for your customers and also your employees as well.
We're talking with Mike Enright. He's service manager at Biz Filings. And Mike, one of the things that I've heard from a lot of folks over the past few weeks is flexibility. Things are going to look a lot different. You mentioned a little while ago, people working from home, they've got kids, so it's not going to be a 9-to-5 schedule. Things are going to have to be shuffled around, and you got to adapt to that. And adaptation is the fourth item on your list. What are some of the main ways you can do that?
Yeah, a big part of it is just recognizing the fact that this is changing all of our lives, and this is something that we've never encountered before, and we have to just go forward with that mindset. Because we need to come to grips with the fact that the business plan that you started the year with isn't going to be applicable today is likely the case, and you just need to, as I mentioned earlier, adapt your business at each stage of this crisis, including when it starts to lift. I mean, I think having a plan to come out of this is just as important as the plan that you have while this is all going on. I think if your business has seen immediate impacts, looking for ways to support clients' needs, maybe changing your products and services during this time. Are there any new services you can offer or different clients you can market to? With Biz Filings, we work with small businesses and help them do filings in additional states. I can tell you that some small businesses are thriving. For example, we're seeing a lot of activity from some of our customers that do online learning. So, just thinking to yourself, what are some areas that my business maybe can help serve other industries that maybe you normally wouldn't?
Mike, another issue that is probably top of mind to a lot of folks, and it certainly is to individuals and families around the country as well, and that's being able to properly evaluate your financial situation, whether it's your existing books or what government assistance might be available in the short term or possibly even the long term. Where do you start, and what does that process look like?
Yeah, so any contingency plan that you come up with obviously should account for financial risk. I mean, that's probably the first thing that most business owners think about. And just doing things like being more diligent about tracking your cash flow and forecasting and looking for opportunities to reduce non-critical expenditures. I think every business is probably trying to do that now, and it's something to really be detailed on in your thinking. Also, reviewing your accounts receivable and assessing any credit risks is a good idea. There are some assistance programs out there that are coming into light during these times. A lot of them are administered by the Small Business Administration. A lot of large cities have local chapters that you could reach out to just to see what resources are available. I think a lot of folks have heard under the CARES Act, which is something that the SBA is providing. They're providing low-interest disaster recovery loans of up to $2 million for businesses that are impacted by this situation. But in addition to that, the federal government is also offsetting things like paid sick leave and costs for employers with an employer tax credit up to 100% of the benefits paid. So there's a lot of things going on from the government as well, both locally and federally. And, reaching out to the SBA, if there is a chapter locally, could be a good starting point just to see what's available.
The government giveth and the government also requireth. They might be providing some assistance, but it doesn't mean that the regulatory environment that you're operating in has changed much. It might in some cases, but not necessarily in a lot of cases. So how do you stay on top of all the changes on the compliance front?
Yeah, and that's a really interesting question and something that I've been thinking about a lot, because this all started at a time of year where is sort of the prime time for doing compliance-related things for businesses. Things like filing your annual reports. A lot of states have them due during the first quarter of the year, the first half of the year. Aside from annual reports, and I'll talk about that in just a second as well, but a lot of Secretary of State offices have eliminated things like expedited services. Some don't allow for counter service. So every state is different. They're handling this situation very differently. Regarding annual reports, it's just interesting to see how some states have extended time frames for filing and extended deadlines. There's some states that haven't at all. So we at Biz Filings have really been mitigating those changes, staying on top of them with our government relations team. We have some good resources on our website that can help determine what's changing in your state. It is a really important time to stay on top of compliance. And one thing I think that's important to note too, I was just talking about, some of the loans and some of the resources available from the federal government. You'll likely have to be in good standing with your state in order to be able to receive that type of assistance. So, it even makes the current annual reports that are due even more important. So it's just something to keep in mind, even when we're not going through something like this.
Mike, tell our listeners where they can find some help along the compliance front at Biz Filings. You've got resources there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is bizfilings.com. There's some links right on our homepage that gives some resources regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and how some states have changed and what to expect there. So we have a learning center that can be a great resource for even just learning about how things work in general in different states.
All right, let's move on to our seventh and final aspect of what small business owners can be doing right now, and that's to be prepared for what you call the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we said at the beginning, it's going to get back to what passes as normal at some point. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, which is challenging and I suppose grounds for some opportunity. So what are the best ways to be prepared for that light at the end of the tunnel when you're not exactly sure what it's going to look like yet?
Yeah, and I think a lot of folks think and even just sort of daydream about being able to go back to doing the things they're used to be doing, and it is coming, and it's fun to think about. But I think it's also important to have a plan about how you respond to that as well, because the new normal will be different than it was a few months ago. So obviously, first and foremost, we hope that all of our employees are safe and healthy, and that we've mitigated our financial impacts. And to move on, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for startups and small business owners once we come out of this. There's a good chance we'll see a lot of activity in the economy. And, I think there could be some short-term gains to be had just in the economic climate once we come out of this. There's some things specifically that you can do. One being, it could be a good time to renegotiate contracts with suppliers and vendors, just, kind of responding to what the new normal is. I think it's also important throughout this, but also as we come out, to really listen to your customers and, find and apply new ways to serve them. And then also just looking for greater efficiencies in your business. We're learning a lot right now about what businesses can do virtually. I know I am every day, looking for new ways and learning about new ways to communicate with my colleagues and our customers. And, I think even applying those once we get back to normal will be critical and something that we have to do. And then just consider your financial situation. Are there any measures you can take to ensure that you have cash flow and a safety net going forward? And even just thinking about, what you learned from the situation.
Mike, that's a ton of great advice. I know that's going to hopefully be a breath of relief to a lot of business owners wondering how long they're going to be in this situation and how well they'll be able to survive it. Any closing thoughts to provide some perspective and encouragement?
Whatever happens when we come out of this, there's a lot of things we want to go back to doing. And it's really just staying on top of, what you can control within your business, and having an open mind is the biggest thing. I know it's been something I've been trying to do quite a bit over the last month, is just looking for new ways to do things, but also just making sure some of the bare minimum things with your business are covered, making sure you stay in compliance, making sure you get all your filings done so you're ready to come out of it and hit the ground running. And also, you are eligible for any assistance that might be out there. I do think that, doing all these things will ensure that you come out of this as strong as possible and just make that reemergence even more sweet.
Mike, let's hope it's soon, and let's hope a lot of folks follow this advice, because I think it'll serve them well. Thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Mike Enright, Service Manager at Biz Filings. And again, for more resources, you can find them at bizfilings.com. I'm Greg Corombos reporting for Expert Insights.
Biz Filings, a Wolters Kluwer company, has been incorporating businesses since 1996.